News on the continued political persecution of Donald Trump and the efforts by the corrupt Biden DOJ to interfere in the 2024 election, to undermine the will of the American people. And we have Congressman Matt Gaetz. He'll be here to discuss all of this just moments away. And later, we'll do a deep dive into the indictment with former Trump official and America First faithful Peter Navarro, plus esteemed Harvard Law professor and author of Get Trump, Alan Dershowitz, joins us later in the program. So now tomorrow, the 45th president, Donald Trump, will be arraigned at the federal courthouse in Miami after being indicted last week on charges relating to classified information. It's all just more evidence of a two-tiered system of justice and yet another dark day for our country that's suffering under an out-of-control Biden Justice Department. So first, I want to take a step back and lay out just what this is all really about. Democrats and their allies in the swamp are terrified that they cannot beat Donald Trump at the ballot box, so they are hatching yet another scheme to try and destroy him and the America First movement. That's all this is, a set of orchestrated by the corrupt swamp machine that can't fathom having their grip on power taken away. And as it relates to the law, President Trump doesn't need to get permission from a federal bureaucrat to declassify anything that he chooses. And he doesn't need permission to have a copy of his records in the office of the former president. You've heard a lot about the Espionage Act and heard all of the bluster from special counsel Jack Smith. But there's another law called the Presidential Records Act that undercuts the entire argument. Any record the president or his staff creates or receives in their official duties or capacity is a presidential record. Translation: Donald Trump had the right under the law to maintain custody of his records, whether they were classified or not. So what we're really dealing with is just another example of Democrat prosecutors creating new legal theories to weaponize the law against Donald Trump. And get this. According to the House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan, a former FBI official tasked with executing the raid on Mar-a-Lago told the committee that the Biden DOJ breached protocol to justify the search. The equal application of our laws is dead. There's one rule for Democrats and one rule for the rest of us. Take a look.
Around President Biden's handling of classified documents.
Found in President Biden's garage.
Multiple classified documents.
You and the former president are both now under investigation by the Justice Department.
But they didn't indict Biden. Instead, Biden's DOJ went after Trump. Anything to block him from becoming president again. Stand with President Trump against Biden's corruption. Make America Great Again Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
We have so much more to get into. So joining us now, the Florida firebrand himself, the one and only MAGA superstar, Congressman Matt Gaetz. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Oh, thank you, Kimberly. And it seems like it's quite the lawyer nerd out that we have.
I know.
Dershowitz, Gaetz, we can really get into this and talk about the challenges.
It's really true. So you had one of the best tweets. This is no surprise, right? Fantastic with the tweets that you put out on this, writing, quote, "Imagine being naive enough to believe that the Biden bribe evidence and Trump indictment happening the same day was a coincidence." Lay out what you were thinking and talk about what's behind this with Merrick Garland's scheme. What's he got going on here?
Well, there's really two problems at the Department of Justice. One is that they accelerate anything that could be in any way harmful or negative to President Trump, his family, his supporters. And on the other hand, they actually function as plumbers for the Biden family. They try to discredit any negative information that comes in as foreign influence, even though oftentimes it's just very probative as to the compromise that exists over the first family. So here you have this remarkable scene play out where on the eve of FBI Director Christopher Wray being held in contempt of Congress, they turn over the evidence showcasing a bribery scheme, not just with Hunter Biden or Frank Biden or other Biden family members, which we've proven before, but specifically implicating Joe Biden. And reasonable people might ask, well, if a trusted FBI source brought this in, why was it not developed? Why was there no follow through? Why was there no investigation? Because if they just heard an anonymous whisper that Donald Trump had taken a bribe, well, you know that the full force of the federal government would be
100%.
weaponized against him. And when you're thinking about the Espionage Act, this is Woodrow Wilson's Espionage Act. This was intended in an era of global conflict to try to deter people from selling stuff to our adversaries. So when it comes to the Espionage Act, I think this indictment vastly underperforms kind of the stated purpose and the underlying principle that undergirds the Espionage Act. And it is glaring in its omission, as you stated brilliantly in your monologue, as to the Presidential Records Act. When you have the most operative statute that governs how these things are to be resolved administratively, not through criminal process, and you just lay that aside, I think it showcases a real weakness in Jack Smith's case. Another thing I found interesting, and I really wanted to talk to you about this, Kimberly, the mention of Hillary Clinton in the indictment.
Right.
I never would have believed that it would have been the DOJ and the government itself wanting to make reference to Hillary Clinton in this case, because it gives President Trump's legal team the ability to conduct a great deal of discovery on how Hillary Clinton was treated and potentially even put before the jury these things. Now, normally a judge might say that is outside of the scope of these charges, but when you have the charging instrument referencing
Brilliant
Hillary
point.
Clinton, yeah, don't you think that's a big
A
mistake?
huge deal, because he's able to then go in and get any kind of discovery, like you say. They can try to compel her testimony, bring her forward in front of a jury. I'm looking beyond that, and I say to myself, why did they do that? Why did they do that?
I think they couldn't help themselves. Like, there's references to statements President Trump made on the campaign, which I think Jack Smith, in a very myopic view, interprets as some sort of, binding paradigm vis-a-vis classified documents. Keep in mind, Joe Biden has had classified documents in his garage since 1974, and no one really thinks he's going to be charged with any criminal violation as a consequence. But I think sometimes they really can't help themselves, and it really exposes what the true motivation and intent is. And in a lot of ways, isn't that President Trump's superpower? Like, whether it was the original sin of the Russia hoax or this nonsense about Ukraine, President Trump has a unique ability to showcase the changes that we need by drawing fire himself personally. And I hate that he has to go through that his family has to go through that. But in a way, we may come out a stronger country being able to identify where there are these nodes of corruption and improper influence that otherwise have thrived in Washington, D.C. under Republicans and Democrats.
It's really true. But when you look at this, the whole thing, and you get some elevation on it, we've heard the Democrats scream up and down the street about election interference time and time again. But of course, what they accuse, and we find this every time, Donald Trump of, is exactly what they're actually doing themselves. So what do we see as like kind of the next steps for the Weaponization Committee to try to combat this?
Well, Chairman Jordan, as you pointed out, wants to know, what the scope is of this. Is this just a fishing expedition? We're going to be requesting information regarding the people on Jack Smith's team. Remember, the Mueller team was chock full of people with a partisan axe to grind. It certainly seems with Jack Smith and some of the associations he has that we may see that very same thing manifest here in this case. And so we're going to be looking at those things very closely. But I've got to tip my hat to my colleague, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Today, she announced that she is putting in an appropriations restriction on any money to Jack Smith, and she is working to garner support for that. And in a way, it is a flex of Article 1 powers. Congress is organized under Article 1. We have the power of the purse. In a lot of ways, we're the first among equals in the three branches of government, and we should start acting like it. And so I am in full support of the prohibition on funds to this terrible political prosecution that Marjorie Taylor Greene has advanced. And here we sit, Kim, on the eve of President Trump showing up at a federal courthouse in Miami. I think back to being a kid and seeing Manuel Noriega, the former Panamanian dictator, dragged to the federal courthouse in Miami. But the irony here is it's the United States that's looking like the Banana Republic.
It really is. It's unbelievable. It's like you woke up like, Rumpelstiltskin. You're like, wait a second, what's happening here? Can I get my America back? It was so just, I had to take a moment just seeing when President Trump, landed Miami. You see his plane going through, and you can't imagine, like, what is this happening again? First with New York, and obviously first going back to the Mar-a-Lago raid. Now this, what he has to be subjected to. I'll be with him tomorrow when he flies back. We'll be waiting there for him in Bedminster, where he will address the country and the world, quite frankly, about what goes on. But he has incredible strength to be able to get through this. But like we say it all the time, it's like they're only after him because they're after us. And, if they can do this to the 45th president of the United States, by the way, factually innocent, and pulling out this antiquated Espionage Act to try to bootstrap in, really circumventing and steamrolling right through the Presidential Records Act, where he is fully entitled to do what he did, declassify documents, retain, etc. They can do it to anybody. They can do it to anybody. We've all seen it. You've seen when they try to come after you with lies and fabrication. It's out of control, but we've got to do something about it. I love the fact that you're saying, yes, let's do what we have the right to do. Use the power of the purse. Like, shut it down. Cut off the head of the snake. Don't let them have the money, the funds, to be able to continue to use this lawfare to weaponize against the president, weaponize against American, citizens. So I'm with you on that. So go MTG, because she don't care what they say about her. She's just like, let's just go. She's the female honey badger. You're the male one. All right. So the more we kind of look at all of this, it looks like a total setup, right? Because you got past presidents, along with Joe Biden. They have all had, you saw a little thing in the opening monologue with Corvette Summer, where he was keeping the documents with trustee Hunter in the House. They've all had classified records, but no indictment. Yet now they're only going after President Trump. It's a totally different story whenever it's President Trump. How are they going to even justify this? The documents that Joe Biden had, he wasn't protected by the Presidential Records Act. That all, predates this.
In a just world, I think we could all, Republican and Democrat, look at this situation and say, we probably need a better way to do this. We haven't reformed this system in the digital era. I think that creating repositories where, while these things are being negotiated, they can be worked through is an appropriate area for legislative review. And there may even be some administrative actions that can be taken so that there's not the very confusion that seems to have emerged vis-a-vis President Obama, President Bill Clinton in his sock drawer, Joe Biden, Vice President Pence, President Trump. But President Trump is being singled out for basically two reasons, and you and I know them. He's running for president, and he's winning. And if either of those weren't the case, then we wouldn't be here. And it's precisely because they fear the American people continuing to get a seat at the table in a Trump administration, and they want to exclude that. And so they're using this extreme tool. But I think the ultimate verdict will be issued in the election. And the primary election is one that seems to be getting better and better in outlook for President Trump. The more people seem to be coming after him in this way. Just saw recent polling showing him, now moving well north of 60% of the vote in the very, very divided Republican primary field. And I think people are starting to wake up, and these actions are drawing into sharp relief the fight we are in. And like Tim Scott, we love Tim Scott. Tim Scott's a nice guy. We'd hang out with Tim Scott. But like, for this precise moment, he's not the guy that can be president. Donald Trump has to be president because of what we are facing.
Well, that's true, and that's the thing. There's nice people in there. Tim Scott's a great guy. Nikki Haley, a lot of people kind of like her. From a more like mainstream Republican, perspective. But it's not about that. It's about who's the best and right choice. Like, why wouldn't you, if Michael Jordan is willing to play and he's in his prime? I don't think you bench him. I don't know.
I would take Michael Jordan after his prime.
By the way, I take him right now. Yeah,
he's better than a lot of people.
It's really true. And so, for me, when people talk about him, it's like, okay, that's great. But how about those guys in like 2028 or something like that? Because this is so bad what's happening now. And like we need to have a serious majority, in the House, right, in Congress. We need to have the majority in the Senate, and we need a strong America First Republican, not a rhino, in the White House to get this done.
You and I both know nothing ever really happens in this town without presidential leadership. Presidential leadership drives anything that is consequential. And when we look at the consequential fights we're in, we know that with President Trump, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to imagine what his policies will be. We saw them on the border. They worked. We saw them in the economy. We were thriving. And I think people want to get back to that. And maybe now I would speak to those viewers who maybe you don't like President Trump. Maybe you don't like the mean tweets. Maybe you don't like the brash attitude. But even if you don't like it, you need it. You need it for the sake of your family and your job and your future and your country. And that is, I think, what is going to really define the contours of this race. And I think it's why you see Jack Smith engaging in these very aggressive actions. And for Joe Biden to be cast in the world now as a guy trying to jail his primary political rival, it undermines our nation going forward. And frankly, I think the stain's going to be pretty hard to get out. I mean, even after Joe Biden is a distant memory, I think that despots and dictators throughout the world for 20 years may point to this action by Joe Biden to justify really brutal actions against political opponents and really terrible endeavors of repression, and that blood will be on Joe Biden's hands.
Yeah, I really think so. I think you're absolutely right. And when you really think about what you said, he's trying to jail his primary political rival. Like, put him in jail. Take the will of the people away from them and decide himself, you know, essentially Joe Biden emperor, like just eliminate Trump. It's, you know, it really shocks the conscience, quite frankly. But I want to talk a little bit more about this Espionage Act, because I want to know if you can do anything about this, Matthew. Should Congress actually step in to maybe rewrite this Espionage Act? You know, because you would find that they use these like antiquated laws, et cetera, and then try to weaponize them, you know, doing these loopholes. It just seems to me that it's sort of a scary, perilous path if this precedent is being established and weaponizing this act to be able to go after political opponents. And it's remarkably broad.
It's a great point. I mean, again, this is the Woodrow Wilson era Espionage Act. And if you take the Jack Smith interpretation of the Espionage Act to its full and fulsome conclusion, no president will ever declassify anything on the way out of office, because even if you declassify something, you could get hauled back before some court by some political rival, you know, not just the following year, but 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And so it limits the ability for presidents to be able to utilize the powers that are fully vested within Article 2. So in a way, this interpretation as applied of the Espionage Act is anti-constitutional. And I think that would certainly summon the need for some reform to the law. You and I both know there are a lot of intelligence authorities that need to be looked at and revised. And you know, I look at the 702 authorities that were used in the Russia hoax, which is really, the Russia hoax is the original sin of all of this. It's what really launches this persecution of Trump. And they're humiliated, by the way, at how bad the Russia hoax went. And that's a part of this too. Anyone would be naive not to think so. But they use these authorities, these 702 FISA authorities, and I want to make very clear on the record on your program, I will not vote to reauthorize those authorities. They expire this year, and they ought to be in the dustbin of history. Do
you think we have the support and the votes in Congress to do away with it?
We've got friends who are in the national security, you know, space, and I'm on the Armed Services Committee, so I understand we have enemies around the world. But pursuant to these authorities, the FBI did over 1 million illegal searches. They did an illegal search, like they did 38 of them every hour.
That's insane.
Like over the period of time that the Inspector General reviewed. And
what
this
an abuse of power.
He's saying it's not Jim Jordan saying it. It's the Obama-appointed Inspector General of the Department of Justice. So they've broken bad over there. And I want an FBI and a DOJ that is constrained by the Constitution and serving the people. We haven't had that in a while, though.
That's a big overhaul that needs to happen. That is an absolute fact. And we'll start with the 7th floor over there with the FBI. But I want to talk to you really quick about this because, you know, burying the lead of all of this is we should be sitting there calling for impeachment for Joe Biden with this whole developing, bribery scandal. So, he apparently just gets a pass. That news comes out, like you say, no coincidence that then they go ahead and release this and go after Trump. Tell us what's the very latest with this Biden's alleged role in foreign briberies.
So there's two questions. One is, was the bribe actually consummated? We have that allegation from a highly trusted source. I think there's more spade work to be done to trace down those financial records and to really assess that. What we know is nobody pays a bribe for nothing, right? There's always a deliverable, and the deliverable happened, which was the firing of the prosecutor that these people wanted fired in exchange for this bribe money. So that is very strong circumstantial evidence, but you got to have it airtight and you got to go look at the bank records. So that work is ongoing as we speak right now. But the second thing that we can't lose sight of, even if the bribe was never consummated, there is a cover-up at play here because this source information was just immediately put to the side and it never led to evidentiary development, law enforcement work, the impaneling of grand juries, all the things that would happen if this was someone named Trump. So it's not just the crime of the bribe, it's also the cover-up. We have two parallel investigations going right now into those matters.
I'm very optimistic about that, and I think it's extremely important. You know, it's for the integrity of our system and for, you know, American jurisprudence and democracy, quite frankly. All right, let's talk about the GOP primary real quick before we have to let you go. How do you think all of this affects it? I mean, we see Trump's poll numbers are up, so it's backfiring, and they're making him the braveheart of, you know, the political movement and with the persecution of him. But how do you see it in terms of the other candidates, the other people running, and ultimately, what does this do for us with the general election, since now all this focus is here on the primary?
People always try to game out elections in advance. I've been on the ballot, I think, every 2 years since 2010. And what I can tell you is you have to win one election at a time. And the primary contest is what comes first. And that ought to be our focus right now. And in that primary contest, I can only imagine how frustrating it is for everyone else running that they're not really going to be able to break through the ubiquity of the Trump coverage.
Right.
And whether it's, you know, for that which is deeply unfair or deeply troubling to people, it is coverage nonetheless. So I've seen in recent polls the president gaining ground. I actually don't think he's crested yet. I think toward the end of this week, early next week, we're going to see the president in the mid-60s in a lot of these places. That would be a high watermark, and it would also be really historic just given the number of people running. I mean, everybody who runs for president has 10 or 20 friends, except maybe like Mike Pence, but almost the rest of them do. And in that, you know, type of a competitive dynamic, the way President Trump is consolidating the Republican primary vote certainly makes him formidable, if not insurmountable.
Well, a good friend of mine, Art Fisher, you know him as well, as a big supporter of the president, and he calls Trump the American Winston Churchill. That's what he thinks, American Winston Churchill. We'll see. We certainly need a great leader in moments like this, and I know that we have one in you. I can't thank you enough for your time, my good friend, and we look forward to having you back on the program real soon.
Thanks, KG. See you soon.
All right. And we will have much more top analysis coming up with the one and only Peter Navarro, and later legal scholar and author of Get Trump, Alan Dershowitz, is going to join us. So make sure you like and subscribe right here on this channel so you never miss an episode. It's you that make this show possible, along with our amazing sponsors. And with that in mind, make sure you go and check out the great folks over at Goldco. Gold and silver can protect your retirement savings from inflation and dollar devaluation. Look, we see all the economic warning signs, right? We see the banks collapsing, we see the reckless spending, and I want you to be ready. I'm ready. And with Goldco, you can take action to secure and stabilize your portfolio. There's rollover possibilities with your 401k or your IRA into precious metals and safeguarding your savings, and you can do it tax and penalty free. So whether it's from precious metals, IRAs, to direct purchases of gold and silver, Goldco has helped thousands of Americans place over $2 billion in gold and silver. Think about that. That's smart money with smart people. So go to kimsmetals.com to learn more and get the wealth protection kit that Americans are using to protect their retirement savings. That's kimsmetals.com. And I also want to bring you a brand new message from Patriot Lifestyle, where you can save more and spend less on a whole host of different benefits, from non-insurance healthcare benefits to savings on travel, identity theft, legal services, and even pet care. Take a look. And you can go to patriotbenefits.net to learn more. These programs all come in extraordinary value, and they will improve your life for sure, that of your pets and loved ones as well. Now, as we continue our coverage of the indictment against Donald Trump, we are witnessing a total destruction of legal norms that have never even been in the record books. It is unbelievable. They are going all the way out, Espionage Act, whatever they can do to go against President Trump. Now, to talk about this, I want to bring in a former director of trade under the Trump administration, author of Taking Back Trump's America, MAGA warrior, Peter Navarro. Peter, thank you for being on the program.
Hey, gee, it's sort of great to be here. I mean, the circumstances really are so disgusting and unusual that we have to talk about. But I want to let you know, just this morning I put out on my Substack, peternavarro.substack.com, an article that puts the trials and travails of President Trump in an international context. And the theme of this is that we've become essentially a Pakistan fascist hell. And yeah, I compare President Trump's situation to that of a guy named Imran Khan, who was the prime minister of Pakistan. He was like the Trump of Pakistan.
Right.
He campaigned as a populist economic nationalist like President Trump did, got in there, was shaking things up. And then, sure enough, the deep state started going after him internally. They ousted him in April of 2022. Sound familiar? And here's the thing. What's interesting about this case is that they put him in jail, like they're trying to do Donald Trump. And even after he got out of jail, they've forbidden him from running for re-election. See, so that's Pakistan. Then you switch over to Brazil, to J.R. Bolsonaro, who was the Trump of Brazil. I mean, I bet you probably might have even met him.
Oh,
KG.
yes, I know him very well. He came to my birthday party when he was in Mar-a-Lago.
He gets screwed in a rigged election. They put in a
Terrible.
socialist backed by China, communist China. And you know what they're doing? Same movie here. They've got him on trumped up charges. He's going to trial actually this month. And if he's convicted by this kangaroo court, no jury involved, he won't be able to run for president for 8 years, 2 terms.
2 terms.
So that's
wow.
the game afoot here. Jack Smith's wife is a Biden donor and an Obama propagandist. And we have, the thing that really frosts me right now, and I saw the president put out a message on this, is friggin' the rhino Bill Barr. I mean, this guy, I never understood why he got appointed. When he got appointed, it was like, wow, what can go wrong here? Rhino, white shoe law firm, this, that, and the other thing. And when I was in the White House with President Trump, this guy continually screwed the president. And he's on Fox like trashing the president, when in fact Bill Barr was involved in a seditious conspiracy to overthrow the Trump administration. Why do I say that? Because it was Bill Barr and Chris Wray who sat on the friggin' Hunter Biden laptop for a year before the November 2020 elections, which polls tell us, KG, that if we, the people, had known the truth of that instead of having it portrayed in a lie of Russian disinformation, Donald Trump would have won in a landslide. So, this is peternavarro.substack.com. I think it's a really textured analysis. And this is the kind of stuff that just drives me just mad and wanting to get even at the ballot box in 2024.
It's really true. You really bring up an important point, because a lot of people are circulating the article around today, the Daily Caller, where Bill Barr was saying, "Oh, look, it's true. The president was targeted, and they've gone after him with sham investigations." And he says, "I stood by his side when these things were happening." With friends like that, who needs enemies? And then he says, well, but this time, this is a serious problem and violation of the Espionage Act, et cetera, et cetera. So he's going all in. He's leaning in on this to say that this is actually problematic for President Trump, that all the rest of the stuff was all, fake news, lawfare, weaponization. They victimized them, but they're saying he said he is not the victim here in this case. Get your response.
Well, first of all, to use a legal term, he's trying to lay the predicate that he's credible on this by saying that he had the president's back in the past. And that's just totally counterfactual. I go back to a time when I was in the Situation Room with Bill Barr, and talking about, and this was not classified information. It was just like me and him talking. It's like, Bill, it's like, I just did this Navarro report, which shows pretty convincing evidence that this election in 2020 was rigged. What say you? And he said to me here, KG, this was really important. He says to me, it's not the job of the federal Department of Justice to do this. It's like back with Gore Bush. It's the job of the campaign and then the political apparatus to handle this. And then like a week later, KG, he gets on TV and says, well, the Justice Department looked at this and found no evidence of fraud, when he told me flat out he hadn't looked at it. So that was the first big lie that he was engaged in. And then, I learned later on that this Hunter Biden laptop thing is like, what the hell was he doing sitting on that? Mm-hmm. He knew damn well that Hunter Biden was, forget about the gun crimes and the drug crimes and the this, that, and the other thing. That's like damning evidence that of treason to the Chinese communists. He sold this country out, influence peddling, using Daddy's Air Force too. So that's Bill Barr, and Chris Wray as a rhino's in that same boat. So this is a seditious conspiracy. They ever since 2016. We go back to then. KG, I'm one of the only three people who was with the boss, served in the White House. That's all 4 years, but also was on the campaign. One of them, me, Scavino, and Miller, and that's it. And so I've seen this. I've seen this whole movie. I've seen impeachment 1. I've seen impeachment 2. I've seen the Hunter Biden. I've seen the Russia hoax, and it's just this is coup d'état stuff. Bill Barr was part of a coup d'etat in 2020 that basically took Donald Trump out of office. Let's be clear. So, Bill, you and Fox News, you can get into bed with Karl Rove and Rupert Murdoch and all those friggin' rhinos, but we know the truth here, and we're gonna call you out, Bill, with your white shoe law firms and your BS rhino, because you have no credibility, sir.
You know what's very interesting that you bring this up, because it's true what you say. It's interesting because if you saw in the New York Times article, just segueing for a second about Fox, the person that came to the defense of the general counsel of Fox that created this whole Tucker debacle and the Dominion disaster, he actually defended him. That's how tied in he is with Paul Ryan and Rupert and the rhinos and that whole thing that wants to take down the America First movement. It's completely true. It's there in black and white, and you see the connection, the nexus.
Well, I'll tell you another Bill Barr story. Is I remember when the fall of Hong Kong happened. The Communist Chinese broke their deal with the Brits and crushed Hong Kong, and it was on our watch. And I had a plan that had worked out where we were going to punish the Chinese by cutting off American capital to the Chinese mainland. I mean, there's no reason why military veterans should have their pension funds invested in communist China to help them build aircraft carriers. I mean, that's insane. Okay, but one of the ways they get our money from the hedge fund managers who support the rhinos and Biden is through what they call the Hong Kong clearinghouses. The money goes into there, it's kind of laundered there and onto the mainland. And I had executive order written that would have shut that. And sure enough, who was opposed to that? Bill Barr and Steve Mnuchin, right? Two of the biggest communist Chinese appeasers and sympathizers you ever met. That's who he is. So you get these guys, you get Chris Wray, you get Bill Barr, talking tough on communist China. But when push comes to shove, they're on the other side. And this Bill Barr is the biggest doublespeak of anybody this side of Chris Christie.
It's really true, quite frankly. I mean, you see the similarities and the parallels, between the two. And I want to talk to you because, I'm very frustrated that I see this double standard, just like all of America is. And President Trump is up in the polls, I think, in some measure due to that. In addition to his leadership and his expertise and the fact that people don't like this, like they're coming after him. If you can try to do this in jail, your political rival, so you don't have to face him at the ballot box. I mean, that is insane. I never thought
Yep.
I'd see this in this country. And at the same time, you look at the juxtaposition, you see all of these, nefarious foreign business dealings that Joe Biden, his family has been in, that they suppressed all of this. They hid it, like you said, essentially a coup d'etat against a duly elected sitting president to try to get him out of office. They tried to impeach him. As you know, you were there, like you said, you and Scavino and Jason Miller. Right after he was first sworn into office, they literally said, well, we're going to try to impeach him and get him out. And like you said, it's like, Russiagate was the inception, of all of this. And that was the beginning. And now nothing's happening, not only with Joe Biden and the mishandling of documents that he was not protected by with the Presidential Records Act, okay? He was not president at the time. This precedes it, but yet he's able to do that. We've all seen the evidence. We've seen the videos. We've seen where the documents were. Nothing happens to him. We see the evidence come out about his, bribery scheme and the money that was taken. On the same day, they come at President Trump and say, oh, you are indicted on the Espionage Act. It's out of control.
KG, this is the other thing I handled, peternavarro.substack.com, in the article today. It's just the tell in the con game. It's like you've got Biden as vice president and Mike Pence as vice president, both caught red-handed having classified documents in their offices or homes. Prima facie case for prosecution, because unlike President Trump, vice presidents don't have the authority to declassify documents.
That's correct. That's what I keep telling people. Clinton. Talk about a slam dunk case.
That case goes back to Clinton, where Clinton basically settled the law on this and said that folks like President Trump have the right to declassify documents, but vice presidents do not. So that's a prima facie case. They're not being prosecuted, nor is Hunter Biden being prosecuted. The other thing is, I don't know if anybody's mentioned this on your show yet, but this whole thing about the rocket docket in Miami, where Jack Smith, the prosecutor with a well-known reputation for just simply being a hitman for the Democrats, files this case in a Miami district court, which is called the rocket docket, which means that it's known for being able to run like ultra speedy trials. So the clear agenda is to get Trump convicted before the 2024 election, so he can't run and stand in that election. So, I mean, the dual system of injustice is alive and dragging this country down to a state of unwellness, unprecedented in our history. And I mean, we've really, the Substack, peternavarro.substack.com, it's like how we crossed the Rubicon into this fascist hell. And I'm telling you, there's already incalculable damage done, because they're not just going after Donald Trump. They're going after folks like me and everybody I served with who was loyal to the president in the White House has either received a subpoena or a target of investigation. And it's like, how are people going forward going to be willing to serve in a White House if all they know that's waiting for them on the other end is these massive legal bills? I mean, I'm over $500,000 and counting. It's going to be
that's what they try to do. Yeah, they try to bury you in legal bills and ruin your life and put you out of business.
And then maybe jail you, which is they're trying to put me in prison. They already put me in leg iron. So my point is that, like, how do you get good people to serve in a White House as soon as the partisan tables turn? I mean, this is just so wrong. So the people, I mean, folks, if you're watching this show, it's action, action, action. Rise up. We've got to win in November of 2024. And between now and then, please, do everything you can. Talk to your friends, your colleagues, whoever it is. And we've got to really, really right these wrongs and right this ship. And, tune into shows like KG's, and you'll get the latest information about what they're trying to do and what you can do about it.
Well, it's really true, and your Substack as well, because, we're able to say what we want and what we believe in because we're on channels like this, my show, Don Jr.'s show, and we're not censored, and they can't cancel us, and we will tell you the truth, and we'll bring you people who are unafraid to tell the truth, despite the fact that they come after us time and time again. So I just want to say thank you so much. Give a shout out again for your Substack to the people. Really interesting comments today.
Yeah, peternavarro.substack.com, peternavarro.substack.com. Hard-hitting stuff every day, and appreciate it if you take a look.
Absolutely. And like you said, you and Jason Miller and Dan Scavino from day one back in 2015 and 16. So we'll see it through to 2024. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you being on the program. Take care.
Give my regards to your better.
Yeah, not better, babe. All right, thank you so much. And my closing remarks are just ahead. But first, a very special guest joins us, and it's a surprise to him too. Don Jr., we're going to get a preview about what's coming up on his show tonight and get his reaction. He also spoke to his father last night, and that is just ahead. And before we go, I also want to be able to thank one of our special sponsors like Genucel Skincare. And with Genucel, you're going to find yourself looking refreshed and rejuvenated and years younger right before your very eyes, because Genucel's secret is a family recipe for over 20 years that makes it safe for all skin types and perfect for both men and women. And it's always cruelty-free and all natural. And right now, Genucel is upgrading their most popular package to feature the top-selling vitamin C serum plus the Ultra Retinol Moisturizer. So take advantage of this limited time package, upgrade for up to 70% off. Stay healthy, be your best, look your best, and discover the Genucel difference. Go to genucel.com/Kimberly and get over 70% off their most popular package. That's genucel.com/Kimberly. Today, we're going to bring in Don Jr. here.
Oh boy.
Come on in, babe.
As you can see, I'm not even showered.
Well, no, they can't smell that. You look good, though.
Oh boy, here we go.
All right. So obviously a lot of big breaking news. We saw on the TV downstairs. You saw your father landing. It's just like in New York when they were following the Trump motorcade. They followed the plane. You saw it pulling in to Miami. We were there yesterday, and you got to talk to your father. Last night. Just tell us what what you're feeling, what you think about what's going on here, and how you've kind of reflected, how you're processing all this.
Well, listen, we talk about it all the time, right? There's not equal justice under this legal system. Everyone talks about that. They use that as soundbite, and yet when you have all the evidence out there of all the other people who've done this and so much worse, it's just clear that there's a standard for Trump and or MAGA, America First conservatives, and a standard for everyone else, meaning the establishment, and then obviously the extra special standard if you're a liberal Democrat in power. So it's absolutely disgusting. My father, as you heard, he was in good spirits. He understands, at this point, as crazy as this is, it feels like, it's just another day. It's just another Monday, just another Tuesday, another indictment. Oh, shocking. I don't think it should surprise anyone that also happens the day where there's credible links to Joe Biden and millions of dollars of corruption money. Magically, it dropped that day. No one should believe in this level of coincidence anymore. I'll talk about it a little bit more at 6. I'm not giving you all my good material, baby.
Come on.
Yeah. I'll talk about it at 6.
Big breaking news at 6.
Yeah, we'll talk about it at 6 with, and then also go into it with Kash Patel, who was actually a defense attorney down in Miami, working with some of these same sort of corrupt officials, but also someone who has insight into sort of the DOJ, has insight into the government bureaucracy.
He has his new book out, Government Gangsters, that's coming out
talking
soon.
about that. Who had literally sued the Biden administration to be able to publish these things because he'll talk a little bit about that inside baseball. So, there's a lot going on, but at this point, it shouldn't surprise anyone, but it should disgust them. Yeah,
it really should. And just to imagine, they're trying to go after your dad with the Espionage Act, which is quite antiquated. I mean, it literally comes from Woodrow Wilson era. He's completely able to, and it's permissible to declassify documents. You have the presidential authority to do so, okay? And so he was operating under that. He also, as you know, showed them at Mar-a-Lago that they were properly secured, that he was observing and all of the rules and protocol, but nevertheless
none of that matters, right? Again, we've seen this before. This is not our first rodeo. That doesn't matter, and this is a big deal. And our press and our government doesn't even ask, well, why was Hunter Biden getting millions of dollars to be, a part of businesses in countries that Joe Biden had power over, but he had no experience in? I mean, you don't just give board seats to people who have nothing to do with the thing in question, especially if they don't understand the business, the language, or anything like that. That doesn't happen, and yet we don't even ask the question about why that's going on, let alone actually get to the bottom of it when it's quite obvious. So, that's the state of the world in which we live right now, and that again should scare all of us, because we like to preach democracy, and all those who've been screaming about democracy for the last 7 or 8 years are strangely silent about this. This is the stuff that, when Putin jails his political opponents, they're very vocal. When our government tries to do that to their political enemies, crickets.
Well, that's what Biden's DOJ is trying to do in Merrick Garland. They are trying to put President Trump in jail because it is his primary political rival instead of facing him in the ballot box in 2024. I mean, whoa, that's happening in America. We're not talking about Venezuela or talking about something else. And, I remember when we first started dating so many moons ago.
Long ass time. Feels like almost centuries, baby.
This looks like a hostage video now.
This is a hostage video. It is a hostage video. They had to call, hey, can you come up and do... Alan Dershowitz just had an emergency. He had to bail out. Can you come up and do Kim's show? I was like... I kind of got to go hop in the shower. I was about to get ready to go do my show, and now I got to do Kim's show.
What a Trump, huh?
Yeah, I mean...
Just worry about his show. You want to do my show? I was about to say something really nice about
you. No, you were.
Yeah, I was, baby.
Lying.
So, he was coming home, and it's on the screen. Donald Trump Jr. Is guilty of espionage and treason.
No, it made the cover of Time magazine. It was, treason.
And then it's a treason, and I was like, oh my gosh, I better get him some pie or some good dessert tonight, because this is punishable by death. That's what they were saying about you. Now, Hunter Biden, they suppressed the laptop. Hunter Biden can get millions of dollars for influence peddling and bribery. Oh, and paintings.
Yeah, but babe, you got to remember, I'm just much more of a terrible human being than Hunter Biden. He seems like a very upstanding, patriotic citizen, as evidenced by his laptop. You can see that. So I can understand the difference in treatment.
Exactly, and he would never come up last second and do his fiance's show. No,
that's true. Well, he'd be doing crack, so that's it's a little different, though it could be entertaining.
Unbelievable. All right, so what do you expect for tomorrow? He's going to go down there. He'll do the whole arraignment, and then he's going to head back up to Bedminster to address the country.
Yeah, well, you're going to be up there. Right?
I'm going to be there waiting for him. We have a big event, actually, pre-planned, a big fundraiser, a massive event, raising millions of dollars.
They threw a little monkey wrench in that one, but that's okay. We'll make it work.
So they said, KG, get up here. We're used to that. You got to go speak, so I'll go do it, and Rick Brunel, and be there in advance, and then he'll get there when he gets there, but he doesn't break his word. He's going to follow through on it. And
that's the thing. I mean, listen, we shouldn't have to be used to this bullshit at this point, but we're used to it because, it's just happened so often. Again, whether it's Russia, impeachment 1, impeachment 2, all the other nonsense, New York AG, New York DA, it's, everyone's trying, and they're going to keep trying until they get something. I think, people get that. I think they're waking up to how corrupted this system is, how broken it is. It's just a question of whether they then also have, because part of it's on them, we have to have the guts to stand up to it. We must become unafraid. I think people see the nonsense, they see the bullshit, but we also have to get to the point where they're also sick of it, to the point where they actually want to do something about it. And that's I understand the difficulty of that, because there is a consequence to it. You can see the consequence. The consequence is what they're trying to do to my father. If you take on that system, there's a consequence. I don't think the consequence is as much to them as it is to my father, where it's 500 years in prison for, it's laughable, but they would do, if they could get that, they would gladly do it. They would gladly do that.
Yeah, absolutely, to protect themselves and to make sure. It's interesting, though, Gaetz and I were talking about the fact that Hillary Clinton is actually mentioned in these papers, which leaves a big opening for them to subpoena, to call.
Well, the difference with Hillary Clinton is she wasn't a president to actually be able to declassify. Assuming they're all the same, and there wasn't, I'd say digital is very different, right? Mm-hmm. Digital can be hacked, digital can be this. It's much less secure than literally private files in a vault guarded by the United States Secret Service. That's not the same as Hillary Clinton with a server that you can literally, I'm sure any of the Chinese could hack. I'm sure, Hunter probably gave them access codes to whatever it is that Joe had, or just handed over the physical documents. There's a difference. That wasn't under lock and key the same way. It was in a garage. You see pictures of it out in the open. And again, Joe Biden did not have the ability to declassify these things. So that's a whole nother level on top of all of this. But, I'll get into it more at 6 o'clock. And, hopefully I covered my bases so I don't get in trouble by not doing Kim's show.
Oh my God, there'd be hell to pay in this house.
Maybe I'm expecting full massage tonight.
With some Genucel products.
I don't know about I don't know if that's for me. As you can see, my skincare routine is rather extreme. I hose off in a shower.
You've used lotion a couple times, not just the body lotion, but that I give you massages. But you used a couple times some of the lotion on your face.
All right, so how long is the massage tonight?
I don't know, as long as you were on this show. So.
No, that's no. It should be like a 10-to-1 special. It should be at least a solid 90-minute.
Oh my God! You think this is a professional spa?
I mean, it should be.
No, I don't think so. All right, so I want to say one other thing because you have a good personality and humor about it. I think because you're battle tested so often, it's so nuts. He's like a crash test
because I'm a masochist.
Because
at this
he's a
point.
masochist, and they keep beating him over the head.
I'm punch drunk from the stupidity of all of it.
It's like a cartoon. But in all seriousness, and we talked about this, you're like the most subpoenaed after your father. Talk about that.
Well, listen, I don't think it's even an exaggeration or hyperbole to say that I was the number 2 target of Russia, right? I mean, I did probably, close to 50 hours of testimony for something that the head of the House Intelligence Committee said I was guilty of treason of because they had seen the evidence. Now, that turns out to be bullshit,
Total
but
lie.
Again, it wasn't even about being guilty of that. It's about if you get someone in a room for 50 hours, over months, and then bring them back and ask them the same questions over and bring them back and ask the same questions over and word it a little bit differently, just hoping that you put the comma in the wrong spot, right?
Right.
In your response. Because it was never about actual guilt. It was about, can we get him to perjure himself?
Right.
That's what all this stuff is, right?
It's a game.
And they did that to a lot of other people. Right? We're going to go in under good faith and assume, it's the government. They must be trying to do the right thing. So I'll go in without representation because it's costly. I spent millions, in legal fees. And,
not just
part
that,
of that's
but you've done it so many times.
Prepping and not, because if you just go in and say the wrong word once, even if that's what you remember. No. You sent a text 8 months before that, and they got you. So understanding what you did, not just sort of to the best of your recollection, you have to have an understanding of that. So for me, again, maybe you're a little bit punch drunk from it because it's gone on so much, but I was number 2 in Russia. I wasn't involved in any of these. I'm surprised they haven't figured out how to drag me into it somehow magically yet. And there's probably
I'm sure there'll be someone at the door soon. Why did you have to say that?
They probably, now the light bulb just went off. Luckily, they're probably not watching this show or mine. But that's the reality. If they can tie in anyone else to put them under pressure, they hope they get them in there without counsel. They're trying to do the right thing, and they forgot something. They just genuinely didn't remember. For me, Russia, it was like, when I was testifying, it was like 3 years after the fact. I don't know. How many emails I've sent, how many phone calls I've made, how many
then you've had to deal with all the stuff.
Well,
with Trump
remember one of the
and
big
all
things was
state cases.
Who was the unknown call 3 years ago at 2:53 p.m. I don't know who it was. It must have been your father. Well, literally turns out a year later they found out it was just literally a friend of mine that just has a blocked number, and they found that out. But forever that was definitely it. That was me warning my father because it was unknown call at the same time, and it wasn't anywhere close. But that was one of the big, literally the walls are closing in moments because they made it as though it was 100% that, even though I genuinely didn't remember. And they were outraged that I couldn't remember who called me at 2:53 3 years prior.
A long time, actually.
I was like, I don't know who called me that day. I don't know who called me this morning.
Right.
If you asked me in order, I couldn't even tell you. I tell you a couple of people I spoke to the phone who I spoke to last week.
Right.
No idea. Zero chance. I have no idea.
But you've had to testify in all these other cases as well. I mean, it's nonstop. You're a professional.
I've done it all. I've done it all. So, that's where we're at.
That's where we're at, exactly.
Good times.
He does it with a smile, though.
Guys, tune in at 6. We'll have a lot more with Cash. Many of whom refer to as Q, but I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh my God! See how he is? I know. I tease him about that too.
Yeah, listen. Hey, he certainly would know if there's someone that could.
He hasn't denied it.
He has not fully denied. So we'll see.
Oh my God, you're starting so much here. It's unbelievable. That's what he does. He likes to mix it up, my Don Jr.
Hey guys, I'm gonna let you guys know how long the massage actually was, and we'll see if Kimberly's holding true to the 20-to-1 odds. I've been on for 10 minutes now, so that should be 200 minutes.
200 minutes.
Yeah, 200-minute massage. That's my understanding.
Oh my God, my sweetheart living on Fantasy Island. All right, Don, I'm going to close this out. You did a really good job
Thank you,
today.
baby. I
will
appreciate it.
keep
I'm going to go
okay?
shower and not be nasty for my show.
Okay. All right.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Bye. You got to be on my show, so you're welcome. All right, here we go. And in closing tonight, with the weaponization of our federal government in full view, now more than ever, we must be committed to getting behind an America First agenda centered around taking on the corrupt federal bureaucracy. Without a functioning legal system and an honest system, we cannot function as a republic, and we cannot pursue other important policy goals. Integrity in the justice system is at the center of what it means to be a stable and secure nation. So just remember, the only reason this case was even brought in the first place is because Donald Trump is the Republican frontrunner and is on the path to being elected to the White House once again. Like I've been saying, they can't beat him at the ballot box, so they're trying to destroy him through lawfare. It's shameful, but unfortunately, it's not at all surprising. And we'll be right here to cover all the latest developments right here on Rumble, where we reject the false narrative and always seek the truth. So be sure to like and subscribe to my channel at Kimberly Guilfoyle and to Don Jr.'s channel. Turn on notifications, download the Rumble app, and hit the like button for our episodes. And tell all your friends and family, please, so they know exactly where to find us. And also be sure to follow me and Don across all platforms: Twitter, Truth Social, Facebook, and Instagram. And don't miss Don Jr.'s big show tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern with the one and only Kash Patel, the author of the upcoming book, Government Gangsters, that they finally gave the green light for him to go ahead and put it out. And hop on over to Locals right now if you can for a live Q&A with me, the one and only. Have a wonderful evening, and I look forward to seeing you